the dark, dark tomb there was a dark, dark street, and in the dark, dark street there was a dark, dark office. In the dark, dark office there were some dark, dark stairs, and down the dark, dark stairs there was a dark, dark room, and in the dark, dark room was where the worst wrestling tropes go to die.
Hello, I'm Ross Tweddell from Cultaholic Wrestling, and welcome to hell, everybody. It's time for the latest thrilling installment of Straight to Hell, which of course is the show where my illustrious guest, they have a list of pet peeves from the world of professional wrestling, and that list gets sent down to hell to rot for the rest of eternity. Joining us today, of course, is a man who many people believed was me, until he lost weight and I didn't. It's Evil Uno. He's a lovely guy. I think I'm in love with him. Over to Evil Uno and Ross now.
So Evil Uno, thank you so much for joining us today. How the hell are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Thank you so much for having me. I know it's a high requested episode. I got a lot of tweets after Colt showed up. Also, I've been getting tweets for the last 3 years telling me that we're the same person.
Well, up until very recently, because this is one of the questions I need to ask you about. The body transformation hasn't gone unnoticed on this end, because of course people would say you and I look alike. Put me in a mask, I'm Evil Uno. But now you are actually svelte Evil Uno. You've dropped a hell of a lot of weight.
Thank you.
What was the sort of the genesis of this body transformation? It's very inspiring stuff for someone like me, I tell you.
I will say that from the outside, it seems like a very inspirational story. From the inside, it's not nearly as much. I was stuck home. I mean, obviously, I signed to AEW. I had a lot more time on my hands. I had to quit. I got to quit my normal day job, kind of dedicate myself 100% to wrestling. And a big portion of that was to try and diet properly, exercise properly, and kind of take notice of my own body and what needs to be fixed. And so I started that slow transformation, but then the pandemic kind of double timed it because I had so much more time at home because I wasn't on the road, and it kind of lit a fire underneath me because I was pretty fearful that I would never get to wrestle again. So I kind of lost a lot of weight because of that, and I wouldn't say I plateaued, but I'm at that rough part that everyone does when they lose weight, where it doesn't seem to want to go any lower. But I'm moving forward, and I really appreciate everyone that's reached out. And but just know that it sounds so much cooler from the outside. There's no secret. I had to do the hard work, which unfortunately was no fun. But here we are today. I take it.
I was going to say, any tips for people like me who are trying to regain that fire, so to speak?
Oh man, I wish I could tell you, because I'm trying to regain it pretty constantly now. I just took a rock bottom, and I used it to leverage myself. But what keeps me motivated is just knowing that people are so excited that I've lost weight that now I can't backpedal and make so many people disappointed. So it's as silly as that seems, it does fuel me in a sense to know that my success is people bathe in it as much as I do. So that's I'm very appreciative. That's actually fueling me forward. So I appreciate everyone, honestly, for doing it. And for your own sake, the biggest thing for me was portion control first. That seems to be the hardest thing for me, is that I love playing video games. I love watching movies and engaging in pop culture of any kind, be it TV or reading graphic novels. But I would always eat while I would do it, just to keep myself busy. And now it's just trying to limit how much of that I eat. Back in the day, I might eat. You put a bag of chips in front of me, I would eat all of them. If you put a box of cookies, I would do the same. And so part of that is just not leaving anything within reach, and just fighting that mental battle of just not eating everything that's in front of me. And that was honestly the first step. Everything else from there just kind of lined up once I got into my own head and really limited my things.
God, keep it up, man. It's great to see. But you are, of course, the second Dark Order member I've had on Straight to Hell. But crucially, you are the first member I've had on who's been there since the very start. So I'm going to ask you the same question that I started off with Colt Cabana, and that is who do I need to send the cease and desist to for the Dark Orders blatantly stealing Cultaholic Wrestling's world famous catchphrase of "Join us," which we didn't trademark. It might have been a mistake.
So actually, join us was not the first phrase. We joined Dark Order was always the phrase that was let in. But you'd probably have to send that to Mikey Ruckus, who makes the music at AEW, who made the Join Us choice. It is not on me. I will not. If you are going to sue someone, please sue Mikey Ruckus. He has way more money to sue for as well.
It feels like you're passing the buck there somewhat.
I am, definitely am. That's kind of what I do.
These bloody middle managers, eh? But we've got to mention the picture that broke the internet just last week. And what do you make of Anna Jay, or Anna Janus? I guess she's been renamed ever since. What do you make of her trying to is she trying to recruit Jungle Boy to Dark Order? What's going on there?
Oh, I wish it was some convoluted plot to get Jungle Boy and his gorgeous hair into the Dark Order, but I believe there's true romance involved there. It's something that we kind of had an inkling about for a while, and I'm glad that they've made it public. No, there is no ulterior motive from the Dark Order here. There's just genuine, wholesome love that I'm uninvolved in. I swear.
But do you not feel obliged to sort of capitalize on that?
That love. I never said I wasn't going to do that. That's a different ordeal entirely. That's a different plan that's still to be set in action. But as of yet, my hands are uninvolved in this situation.
And how is Stu dealing with it all? Sorry.
I wish I could tell you he's doing great, but you could see his slow downfall every Monday on BTE, and I'm sure. I can almost guarantee he will continue spiraling in the next couple months.
I've got to ask you for the definitive answer, because when we see stuff on social media here at Cultaholic Wrestling, and we get different answers from all the fan base who watch Dynamite and watch Being the Elite. Is what happens on Being the Elite official canon for what goes on Dynamite?
I believe so at this point. I think tangentially there are some of this comedy stuff that may not be real canon, that you just kind of take in jest. For example, we've done a lot of terrible things to Five that I believe should not be accepted in canon. I think the idea of us singling out Five and kind of being a bully to him, yes, that is canon. It's even appeared on television in some sense or form. But I don't think Five, the character's penis, has actually been chopped off. You're all safe to knowing out there that Five is perfectly healthy and fine. We don't actually abuse him like that. But I think a lot of the stories, like Hangman Page's story, is ingrained into BT. The Elite is ingrained into the BT. There are a lot of stories that have a lot of substance from BT that meld to Dynamite, and so BT is almost like a companion piece. But I'd say maybe 50% of that is canon. The other 50% is just wild, crazy lunacy that you give and take what you can. If you think that something is too weird and unreal, likely not canon. If you think that it may lead to something in a wrestling ring, then probably canon. That's how I like to imagine it.
But I guess since the start of AEW, because I was there in the arena at Double or Nothing in 2019 when you and Stu rocked up for the first time with your human throne and all that stuff. What's it like going through that sort of organic transformation, going from like, cause the sort of the general mood in the crowd was like, what the hell is going on here? Who are these two men and all their little friends? What's that organic transformation been like going through?
It's been fantastic to just skip to the end part. Obviously, nowadays it feels great to know that organically, the two guys that people met with silence and who are you and many death threats and many messages saying I should be fired from the company. Those first few months were mentally very draining. And it's great to find out that like now 2 years into it, people have gotten to know who we are. Obviously our characters have changed dramatically in the last 2 years, and that's helped as well. But people have just been a lot more receptive. The early days were tough. I also kind of enjoyed it in a sense. I really liked being on the other side of the coin and being one of those polarizing figures that people really hated, but at the same time, you don't see a whole lot of what I look like in professional wrestling and also what we were doing. So it's been neat. It's been great that my adventure in AEW as of yet has been seeing the low points and seeing the high points of both sides of the metal, and I just hope that I get further and further cool experiences. Hopefully not as negative as the first few, but I invite the future adventures that we will get it.
God, I find it staggering you got death threats of a debut, which, it's wrestling fans can be horrible sometimes, can't they?
It's that, and also I think it was just AEW is at a weird time where it's always Pepsi or Coke, it's always Xbox or PlayStation, right? So you always, if you don't like one, you hate the other, and you have to hate the entirety of the other, and somehow hating the other also involves threatening all kinds of violence. So I think none of it was actually in, like, I didn't get letters to my house. No one knocked at my door. It was more the negativity of all of it. But there were definitely some I hope he dies, or I hope blah blah blah. Like, there were some of those, and I invite you, if you're out there and you post that kind of stuff, no one deserves that stuff. You don't know what people are going through. Please don't single out others. But yeah, it's changed dramatically. I don't get those anymore. Thank you. But yeah, those early times are pretty tough.
Yeah, and I guess now that fans are going to be coming back into the arenas over what's next week, isn't it? Next Wednesday.
Yes, next Wednesday in Miami.
Miami, aye. Are you relishing this more than most in the AEW locker room? Because I'm assuming that the sky is quite literally the limit for Dark Order now, with fans getting back in, and the fact that it's going to be loud, the ovations every single week, aren't they, from here on out? And surely Tony Khan and all the higher ups in the company can't ignore that from here on out.
I mean, I hope that's what happens. I mean, we got a little bit of a taste of it in Jacksonville now that the crowds have been slowly let in. The last pay-per-view, we got ginormous ovations, and as well as the last few Dynamites. So really excited to see just if our change organically has spread out to other markets. We've been in Jacksonville for a year and a half, so a lot of the people that do come to see us have come out to see us, maybe when we were only in front of 150 people. So I'm very curious to see if the reaction that's in Jacksonville is the same in Miami, in Houston, in Pittsburgh, in Rochester. And of course, part of that is because originally I was met with silence and boos, and it's kind of really neat to see the other side and realizing that people enjoy it. But I've actually, in the last week, realized that, like, as happy as I am for this and as excited as I am for it, there's a whole slew of AEW talent that hasn't even wrestled in front of a crowd yet, because they've been through the pandemic era. Like 5 Alan Angels hasn't had a match other than at FanFest most recently that's in front of a crowd, and like that's going to be an incredible experience for him to go on the road and to see if wrestling in front of no one, quite literally, still organically taught people who were watching it on television to enjoy a character, to like a character, to become a fan of one. And so I'm really, really excited to see how people react to the Acclaimed, for example, or how people are going to react to 5. That I'm almost more excited for that than the evasions that we're going to get. So I'm very, very excited for the next couple months. It's going to be a pivotal shift in AEW, I think.
Do you think the pandemic era, in a weird way, has been beneficial for some of the newer acts on AEW for time to sort of develop their characters without having the sort of immediate fan reaction sort of hampering what they're trying to do, if that makes sense?
I think so. I mean, you were definitely in a position to fail more often, which is actually a good thing. So rather than fail in front of an audience and get booed and then potentially never to be seen again because the people make their decisions, you kind of got to do it, and because of the tape nature, you can make mistakes and maybe retape, or you can make mistakes but there's not a live crowd to feed the mistakes, so it doesn't have the extra negativity that it would typically have. To make an example with what happened with Dark Order, we had an event in December of like 2019 where, I mean, a lot of people know it, but when one of our minions wasn't punching one of the wrestlers, and that gets singled out, for example, right? If that happens in front of no one, it's not the same. If that's met with silence in front of no one, it's assumed it's normal silence. If it's meant in front of silence in front of a whole crowd, then that's a different ordeal entirely. Where was I going with this?
But was it beneficial for no fans to allow sort of acts to fill this?
Yes, exactly. So I think a lot of acts just got a lot of chances to grow. You know, like the Acclaimed, if you threw them out the first time and they did the rap and it instantly got silence, they may not have gotten the chance to do it 3, 4, 5 times and perfect what they're actively doing. So now that we're going to the crowds, those people have sharpened their knives. They're ready to do it in front of a live crowd. And I think it's been very beneficial to a lot of us. And it's also permitted a lot of us to approach different avenues, like expressing ourselves through Twitch or expressing ourselves through BTE, like we did. And a lot of acts like the Wingman, for example, may not have had a chance previously, but now that they can kind of organically grow with what people were watching through the show in front of no one. Now, when they get met at a crowd, they won't be met with silence; they'll be met with reaction. So I think it's been very beneficial. But I can't wait to go back to a crowd. The fight or flight sense of every crowd is what I miss from wrestling, and I can't wait to see how those people also will grow with constant reactions and constant feedback.
Do you miss? Do you not miss having no sort of your future, I guess, having been in the hands of the minion, so to speak? Because I'm just going back to the minion who with the punches and whatnot. That was nothing to do with you. That was nothing to do with Stu. But it was a negative reflection on Dark Order. Are you thankful that's not a thing as part of your act anymore, or do you sort of miss those days?
I mean, I loved the concept of having the minions and being like an underboss with his like Foot Clan. Like Shredder. That's kind of like how I envisioned it a little bit. But none of them are supposed to be a threat, so they don't look like threats. But at the same time, I've only just learned from doing this, and this is something that Dean Malenko in AEW had told me. He said, whatever they do is not attached to them, it's attached to you. You're the person that's on television, so it's always going to follow you. And like, it's a lesson I unfortunately had to learn. And it's also helped us get to where we're at today. You know, that's what got Alex Reynolds and John Silver in those positions, because they were people we could trust. That's how Alan Angels and Preston Vance, who people may not know this, were minions originally. They were always under mask helping us out, but that's how they got to their next part, and they were people that we could trust on because they did it so well. But at first, we were in different cities every time, and when we need 20 guys, you can't travel with 20 flights for people that you're not sure if you're going to use. So you're using a lot of people that you veto to some extent, who may not be used to the limelight. Who, for example, the minion who fought Dustin Rhodes may have hit Dustin Rhodes in the head real hard, and then didn't want to hit him real hard in the head afterwards because he's Dustin Rhodes. And those are mistakes that unfortunately can happen when you're leaving that much trust with people you don't know, right? So I do miss the concept of the minions, but I don't miss the attachment that comes with it. That's for sure.
With hindsight being 2020, if you could, obviously the story of the Dark Order and how you've organically transformed from heels to lovable baby faces, would you go back and change anything about the debut?
The debut, I don't think unless we showed up even as faces, if we were a different ordeal entirely, if we were different characters, if I came in as my old character, Player Uno, Player Dos, and we were just thrown out into a match as our first thing, I think people would never have thought differently of us. They would just been, those guys are great, or not, but they definitely wouldn't have vilified the debut. I think the fact that we came in with new characters, we hadn't been in America in so long, is what led to those reactions of negativity. And honestly, it was good for us to have that at first, because everyone in AEW was loved. As soon as someone was announced, they're like, I like that guy, let's cheer for him. I like that guy, let's cheer for him. Well, you need certain people that don't get cheered, that do get booed, that end up being the foil for people that are getting those reactions. So I wouldn't really change much. Would I change things in the trajectory? Definitely. I think that December event would definitely have been changed, and it would probably have helped us tremendously. But also, like, with the lows come the highs. You know, from that low came the storyline of the Exalted One, and honestly, that if it wasn't for that, then who knows where I would be today. So I don't think I would change anything. At least at the very, very beginning, at least the debut, I liked it. Yeah. I liked the negativity and the how befuddled people were to see two guys that no one knew about show up and get no reaction. I kind of thought it was cool, but I know a lot of other people didn't. So,
what was the genesis of the Exalted One coming in?
So at first we're writing a television show, but we're not really writing a television show. You're just integrating all these different characters that either had previous stakes in the independents. So like the Dark Order wasn't the Dark Order previously. We were the SSB, but the minions and all that were something that were an extension of what I was doing on the independents. So I was doing it and I was using my students. And the thought process was that I was teaching them to become me, but no one can become me. And so like I had minions who would underperform, and then I would overperform and look fantastic. Like that was the process of how that was supposed to look. But once it's integrated on television, then it's a lot harder because you have to teach that story week by week, week by week, week by week. And so starting off by telling the story on the first few televisions, we realized that the legs had been cut from underneath us when we did that December event, when we weren't ready in a story point to beat down all of the elite, Dustin Rhodes, everyone, and lay out people at the end of the show. People weren't ready to see that. And so it's soured kind of our story. And the best way to regain momentum was to have someone above me, because it does, once again, that attention and that negativity gets attached to the focal character, which was me. And so by bringing someone above me, there was a chance to kind of fix what was currently happening. And it came maybe 2 weeks after that December beatdown. We had discussed it, and there were a lot of question marks as to who it was going to be, because we didn't know when it was going to start. We didn't even know if it was going to be a thing. Like, who knows? Maybe people won't be into it, and we just make it a mythical figure. There was a lot of names. I'm sure the rumors have gone out. Matt Hardy was definitely one of the names. Luther came up. I had never knew this, but I knew this afterwards. But Brody Lee ended up being the number one choice. He was super interested. We were super interested because he was a good friend and we had known him for so many years. And honestly, it in the end was by far the best thing that could have happened to us.
Yeah, it was a perfect match, wasn't it? Really, just obviously I hear you speak about behind the scenes as well in different interviews, saying just how invested he was, not only in just the gimmick, but sort of everyone who was in the Dark Order as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he had his hands in everything in Dark Order, and honestly helped every single one of us. Not only on an individual basis, like he was a good friend to every single one of us, but he truly took that leadership role. He helped Preston Vance immensely. Yeah. Considering that he was just a guy that was just there to be an extra for so long. Like he put the word in to get Preston Vance. He got Preston Vance gear. He got John Silver gear. He saw Alan Angels. He said, that guy's great. Like, he shouldn't be doing nothing. I would like to have him. Same with Anna Jay. He helped me and Stu tremendously because we were in such an awful spot. Just as far as the public reception to us, and he really turned that around for us. And then same for Colt Cabana, Colt Cabana came in. It was kind of dwindling on television. They didn't know what to do with him. Brody was able to do a program with him that put interest towards him as well. And so he was pivotal to all of us, not only as a character standpoint, but as an individual. He really, really helped every single one of us.
Do you reckon, where do you think Dark Order would be if Brody was still here? Was there sort of plans for Dark Order going forward, or was it not looking too far into the future?
I think there were plans, but only certain people would know. Right. I think, obviously Tony Khan has an idea of the vision of what he wants things to do, and I'm sure Brody, as the leader, as the figurehead, probably had an idea of where those plans were going to go. I think we were heading in a good direction. From what I had heard through the lines of what we would be doing. Would we be in the same position today? Would we be as loved? I don't know, but I also think we'd still be pivotal characters, so it wouldn't really matter. Brody was the guy. I think people didn't I think people didn't know it before, and it's quite sad to know that his appearance in AEW was so short, because it was apparent he had it all. He legitimately did, and so just being attached to him in any sense would have been amazing for all of our careers. So I don't exactly know where we're heading, but I do know that we were very trustworthy of Brody, and we were really trustworthy of what Tony's vision was going to be for our group.
Yeah. So changing gears slightly, I think I'm right in saying you're involved in the AEW sort of the development process for the game. Is that right?
Not the actual game. So a lot of people think that I'm involved in the console game, but I'm more involved on the AEW games brand side, let's say. My project has not been revealed yet, but I'm not working on a game proper, no.
Can I have a global exclusive then, please, about this secret project?
Yes, I will be doing AEW games focused things with AEW talent. Ooh, what is it? Well, I don't know. It's still rummaging up there. But no, I am involved, but only more recently. And I have no involvement in the games. I wish I did. I wish I had all the exclusive on the console game, because I am just as genuinely excited as everyone else. But much like everyone else, I find out when the little snippets get released online.
And finally, just before we get going with the straight to hell portion of the show, can you tell us anything about Rampage that hasn't already been said? We know it's a sort of a bolt-on to Dynamite. It's like an add-on extra hour to Dynamite. What happens on Dynamite? Is it just a continuation of storylines on there, or is it going to be a completely different look, completely different feel, different vibe, all that kind of stuff?
So I mean, I can't confirm anything because the show hasn't happened, and so I think right now it's more of a concept on paper, and it's probably there's the graphic department and all that have probably done a gazillion things back end that I haven't seen. I know that graphically and tonally, it's still going to be wrestling. You know, we're not hiding away from wrestling. It's still going to be professional wrestling. I think the way it's going to be packaged might be slightly different. Things that I've heard is that there will be a more graphical element to it. And I'm not talking about like the 3D sculptures that you see in WWE, for example. Not that kind of graphical. I'm not even sure what the big graphical changes will be, but I have heard that it's going to be packaged differently. Even promos will be packaged differently in a sense. So I'm really excited to see what happens. But from what I understand, it is if you like your professional wrestling, you're going to get an hour of straight up great professional wrestling, and that will never, the AEW will never shy away from just great straight one-on-one professional wrestling with no bells or whistles added to it.
There we go. Great to hear. Right then, so let's get cracking with the straight to hell portion of the show. You've got 5 things that do your head in about the world of professional wrestling. Wrestling could be anything that you can send down to hell and see it rot for the rest of eternity. Can I ask you for your first offering, please?
Yeah, so this is the first one that came up to my head. So I've been a tag team specialist most of my life. Or at least that's the term I like to use, or tag team wrestler, if you will. One of my pet peeves in pro wrestling, and this is like watching pro wrestling, being a pro wrestler, being a fan of pro wrestling, is anytime a tag team isolates a man in the corner and then they just move the man to the middle of the ropes to throw him off. I do not understand how they just maneuver a man sideways with no momentum and send them. It's always bothered me. And anytime I've implemented it in a match, just without thinking, it's made me incredibly angry to see afterwards. That's one of my huge pet peeves when watching professional wrestling.
Has there ever been somebody try to do it to you and you've sort of kicked off mid-match thinking, no, I don't like this isn't how it's going down.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll fight the process, because I think that's what that would be the organic thing. If 2 men grabbed my wrist and tried to move me sideways by my wrists, I would try to fight it. And so being launched is one thing, and yes, of course, the physics behind those ropes are quite impressive. How they can send you running for minutes at a time. But there are little things that we can't correct, and that's one of those things that bothers me. And when I'm in those situations, then I fight, and then I make them fight for it, essentially.
What's your stance on sort of the just to change topic slightly? What are your stance on sort of the lax rules in tag team wrestling in AEW? Because I know it gets some people going. I
understand the appeal of it in some sense. I'm not going to say I despise it. I definitely don't. It's great, and it also facilitates anytime I do make a mistake. I can always say, well, there's no rules, and you can't say anything about it. But I actually like the rules. As a professional wrestler, the art of wrestling to me is to try and limit yourself and to try and work around the rules, and that's kind of what gives you your stories, because if you define the limitations of your match. Much like, tagging your partner out is instrumental to the match. If you could do it at any side of the rope, if you could do it with a person inside the ring, or you just ignore it entirely, then there is no real appeal to tag team wrestling other than two people doing moves at the same time. It takes the drama away. So to me, I like the tag ropes. I like the 10 count that they use. 5 count I'd even use. It would quicken the pace. But I do like referees enforcing the rules. I do like limitations, because then when you go over those limitations, or you build to a process that would break those limitations, that tells very interesting stories. And I think that you need those limitations to tell those stories. If you're just going to do athletic stuff, then yeah, I mean, who needs those? But to me, who can't do 630s, I love to have those limitations, because it lets me tell you my story.
So you heard it here first. Evil Uno to FTR confirmed.
That's right. Me, Dax, and Cash, a good trios of Southern boys who just love to kick ass and drink beer and listen to country music. That's just who we are. You can't stop us. Anyways, that's not happening.
Are they someone you would like to work with going forward? I assume they are.
I would love to. Yeah, we got to meet up in a ring once, which was we had the Elite and FTR versus Dark Order, which was myself, Stu, Colt Cabana, Brody Lee, and I believe Nine, which is a character that only lived on and is on TV for maybe 2 shows. And we got to interact just a little bit. I think they're one of the best teams ever, personally. As someone who does like the limitations of rules and loves, like, when you're able to tell stories and able to wrestle within those rules, they're probably the best at what they do. And honestly, other than myself and Stu, the best teams are probably the Bucks and FTR in AEW. I'm a firm believer of that. And they both offer such different tastes to professional wrestling, and I would love to pair up with them someday, because I do think they're going to be seen years from now as one of the best for sure.
So when are you and Stu going for the gold again? That's what we need.
Well, we I don't know if you know, but AEW has tag team rankings, and so we're building up those points again. We were performing a lot in multi-mans with the Dark Order and kind of testing each other and forming different units. But myself and Stu have started to regain momentum, and I've just been tallying up the points, and hopefully you'll see us on the rankings. And hopefully, if our stars align and we work hard enough, we'll get enough points to be number 1 ranked and go against the Young Bucks or whoever may be the AEW Tag Team Champions at the time.
And just before we move on to your second offering to go down to hell.
Sure.
We've heard rumours, I guess, they've always been there when AEW's been around. It's the trios titles. What do you make of that sort of rumour? It never seems to go away.
I hear the rumor all the time, and I genuinely think that it should happen. And this is what I say for these trios championship. If you want them to be different, it can't just be 3 people versus 3 people. I think it needs to be official Lucha's trios rules. And that's where you can blur the lines on the rules. That's when a person rolls outside, it counts as a tag. If you do a dive, it counts as a tag. That would change what the formula for a match is when you establish trios championships, and would then actually differentiate what a tag team match and what a 6-man tag is. And so I think that would be super interesting. And if it doesn't, if it's still tag related, well, guess what? I'm a specialist at that. I would love the trios to come around, because that's an extra opportunity for myself to win gold for the Dark Order.
But back to the matter at hand, moving people to the middle of the ropes.
Yes.
Is a thing that has gone down to hell to rot for the rest of eternity. Evil Uno, your second offering to go down to hell, please.
The what chant? Why are we still using the what chant? I was like 10 years old when this was a thing. Why are we still? It just happened recently on AEW Dynamite, twice recently on Ethan Page. I'm not sure if it's because people think of him as like a version of The Rock, maybe, and so they're kind of reacting to him the way they would react to The Rock when he was feuding with Stone Cold. For some reason, that's my thought process on this. But let it go, friends. It's really not that fun to do. It's not easy to chant with others. It's also very, very annoying. Please, let's stop the what chant. Thank you.
I assume this is something that is universally hated backstage in every single wrestling locker room you've ever been in.
I think so, yeah, because it's funny, but nothing throws you off more your game with something that just you can't plan for, right? Which is funny because we're supposed to do something that's organic, and we definitely do. But the what chant can ruin the timing of a whole thing. It can. Let's say not to be too inside baseball, but let's say you have 5 minutes allocated to yourself for you to talk. If half of that is what chants, you've only gave 2 minutes of content and therefore have not given the full picture. And so, yeah, it sucks, but I mean, it is also part of wrestling, and so you kind of have to just adjust with whatever happens. And if you were a comedian and somebody heckled, you could choose to ignore it, or you could choose to make it part of what you're doing at the point. So, do I hate it? Yes, but in another sense, it is still kind of, that is part of the show, is that people get to do whatever the heck they want, and I have to then figure out how to make that entertaining.
So let's say down the road you're back to being a heel and you're cutting a promo on behalf of Dark Order, whoever it may be, and the what chants are starting. How are you combating those what chants? Do you have a plan in mind already? You're just waiting to unleash down the line somewhere?
I'll never breathe in between words. I'll just never give them a breather. No punctuation at all. I'll speak like certain people text. Not a single punctuation, not a capitalized letter. It's going to be one continuous phrase, and no one will ever like it. And this will be your fault. You've drained all of the fun out of this because of your what chants.
I sort of want to see this happen now. I'm thinking of Busta
Me too,
Rhymes.
actually. And this could be fun.
I remember those raps that Busta Rhymes would do about 10 years ago. He wouldn't breathe for about 30 seconds.
That's right.
So there we are. Busta Rhymes is the antidote to the what chants in pro wrestling. But if you were to offer fans an alternative route, fans who want to do the what chant, if you were to say here's an alternative to do instead that isn't as annoying, what would you be saying to people?
Just boo. I mean, if you didn't like what he said, just boo afterwards. I wish there was an alternative. I can't think of one, and maybe that's why the what chant is still here, right?
Yeah.
It's not there as much to boo on the person that you're watching as much as is there to annoy them, and so I guess it's doing its job. What's the alternative? I don't know. Kazoos, maybe? Get kazoos. That's really annoying. Let's get kazoos going.
Did you see the South Africa World Cup in 2010, the Football World Cup?
The Vuvuzelas.
Oh,
yes.
no. Oh, they were terrible.
They kind of made an appearance in Canada afterwards for all sporting events. And so football here, I'm in Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada. Our local football team, or the CFL team, gets vuvuzelas every time they do stuff. So it's not nearly as heavy as it was at that time, where every single person out there in the crowd has one. But you're kind of seeing it make an appearance here and there.
God, they're awful. I bloody hate them. But anyway,
I don't like them either.
The what chant has gone firmly straight down to hell. I tell you what, when it was happening during Ethan Page's promo on Dynamite, looking on social media, the sentiment on Twitter at least, it's turning on the what chant. Fans are going against the what chant now. So maybe
I believe so.
It's going to start dying a natural death from here on out.
It might go away like the CM Punk chant went away. But then again, we thought that was leaving, and then it slowly makes an appearance every now and then. So
every now and then, yeah. So there we go. The what chant has gone down to hell. So what's your third offering, please, Evil Uno?
So this is another inside baseball one, but like this just teaches me that what you're gonna do. If you're my opponent, don't yell out the move you're about to attempt on me. Why would you yell out Brainbuster and then try to apply it afterwards? You've now told me exactly what I'm going to try and block. Not very smart, professional wrestlers. Don't yell out the move you're going to do. It's quite silly.
I'm going to try and ask for names here, but I don't know if I'll get them. Who are the main offenders that you see anywhere just shouting moves before they do them?
I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. I will say this. The one person that does it so El Generico used to do this all the time. He'd yell out Brainbuster, and then the great thing about how he did it is that I would say it would get reversed sometimes, but then a lot of the times he would actually hit it. So you weren't sure if it was going to happen or not. One person that I think has done it tremendously is Lycos from the UK, who calls out the move and you know at a 99% chance he's not going to hit it. And that's kind of like the whole deal, is that he makes it so blatantly apparent he's not going to do that it becomes a comedic moment. But even that is kind of making fun of the fact that it's a silly thing. You know, the fact that it's comedic is because it's already ingrained as something that is stupid. So actual offenders out there, I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to say anything bad, and I'm sure I've definitely done it before too. So like the claim can be done against me for sure. You can go back in my history and probably find 20 times I've done it at the very least. But if you're a new wrestler out there, or even if you're a professional wrestler on television, people are going to reverse your move. Don't yell it out. Keep it a surprise.
I'm going to try and peel back the curtain ever so slightly here.
Yes.
It amazes me, especially with tag team wrestling, when you see certain sequences that happen during the matches and they just go on and on and on, and all the moving parts have to be in the right place at the right time. How much are matches like just down to short-term memory, and how much is sort of on the fly? Or does it just depend on who's in the ring with you at that certain time?
I think it all depends on the performer. I think it's like there are comedians who are just very funny because they've structured exactly a thing that is funny. You know, they know how to get the laugh, and they've structured the jokes so that it gets the laugh. There are also comedians that are mainly funny because they'll play off something that they didn't know. And what makes them funny is that they're smart enough to take that exact point and moment and turn it into a funny thing. You know, that people who are quick-witted or they're sometimes just weird, you know, like play off something and make it weird. So professional wrestling is kind of the same way. Every person has a different approach to it. I like a good middle ground. When I think of professional wrestling, there's always going to be these moments that I think can be manufactured that can get these reactions. But then I also believe you don't do nothing but those moments. You want to have a ton of space to breathe, because there are going to be moments that you can organically make, especially when you have a crowd. It's a lot harder when there is no crowd to try and make a moment because there's no direct feedback from the crowd. But now that we are going back to live crowds, now that the independents are reopening, having what essentially is improv for a big portion of professional wrestling makes it feel more real, teaches people that anything could happen at any point at any moment, and also teaches them that they can kind of influence the flow of things. You know, if they cheer and they see that the person is actually taking from those cheers and doing things and actually feeding off that energy, then they are more apt to give you energy as well. And you can't always manufacture that, because you can't tell when people are going to cheer. You could think you'll tell, you could think you'll know exactly what they'll do, but you really can't. And the best way to try and figure that out is to not plan anything at all.
Yeah. So there we go. Calling moves straight down to hell. What's your fourth offering, please, Evil Uno?
Oh, whoa! Call it moves. That wasn't on my straight hell, but either way, that was your point. But I'll take it anyways. My first point was having to shave your body hair.
Ah.
Why is it so weird when professional wrestlers have body hair? Why do you shame me for having body hair? Do I have to look like an oily man? Is that really what we want to define as what people should look like? I'm just saying that out there, if you're out there, please. Is it necessary that I have shaved arms? Is it really necessary? Will it really make me look that much better? Can you stop DMing me about shaving my arm?
I think it's necessary for one man and one man alone for his wrestlers to have a shaven, perfect, bronzed, oily body. But outside of that, I just think it's become the norm, hasn't it? Just because of that.
I think that's what it is. I think because of that one dude's thoughts on what professional, and honestly, not even just him, but like throughout the years. But there's always like, when I think of like a manly man, I think of Razor Ramon, who had body hair, you know, or you know, like Tom Selleck had body hair, or so I've always thought it's very odd that in professional wrestling, it's almost seen as taboo to have what is the norm, which is to grow hair and keep that hair on your body. I'm not saying, hey, if you want to shave your arms and you want to shave your chest, that's great. I think if you can make that look good, good on you. I'm very glad for you. I can't. So just saying, I don't think it's a necessity Let's take body hair back, please.
So is that why you started wearing the jacket when you do the wrestling?
I stopped not wearing a shirt because that was the norm for me, because it made people mad. And honestly, that's why I didn't wear a shirt, because it made people mad, and I knew it made people mad. That's what my role was, but it made people too mad, to the point that people are like, he just sucks, rather than seeing beyond what I look like. And so that's why I wear the jacket. And honestly, I like it. I'm not gonna complain. It looks cool. But one day I will probably go back to not wearing one, and then we'll see if the tides have turned, if people are still looking for a shaved man who has way too much defined muscle, rather than a man who has functional muscles.
I was going to say, is the temptation not there to go back to the shirtless after,
always. But I think it's got to be a right time and place. There's a story to be told there, and so it's best to take advantage of that moment than to just do it.
And if you were to be asked, what is the pro to being just completely, from a worker's perspective, I guess, what is the pro to wrestling someone who is shaven compared to someone who is not, or is there no difference whatsoever?
I think there are two things. Aerodynamics, you might be quicker while running, and oiling up makes you a lot harder to grapple. I think that's, so if we're thinking strategically, then yeah, there may be some use to both, but I also think there's use to body hair. I could scrape your face and give you a rash and really rub it into your eyes. You can't do that with smooth skin. In fact, I'd invite you to rub it on me. It seems great.
So there we go. The lack of body hair in professional wrestling has gone down to hell, and I agree with you, because just let it go out there.
Yes.
Nothing. We should all look the same, should we? Doing the wrestling, different body types.
Yeah, agreed.
So there we go.
That's actually my last point. If we want to get to my fifth thing I'm throwing to.
Yeah, go on.
Let's stop body shaming professional wrestlers in general. And I mean this from both sides. Obviously, like, women get it far worse than men. Especially with the age of social media, it is sad to see what women have to go through. And some of my women professional wrestling friends have it rough, like extremely rough. And the worst part is they all look great. I don't understand. Why are people going out there insulting you on your weight when, people of all types are of different weights. Models are of different weights. Actors are of different weights. Your cartoon characters all look different. Your TV characters look all different. So why is it wrong in professional wrestling? I think that's the beauty of professional wrestling, especially nowadays, is that you can be whoever you want to be. That's you are who you are. Do you not like that person because that to your ideals they don't look good? That's fine. You shouldn't shame them for it, though. That they lead their lives and you lead yours. But I think, like, no one should be stunted because they look a certain way. If people love them for who they are and they are able to outperform others the way they look, then who are you to tell them to do differently? That's my thoughts on that. Obviously, this will be stuff that I will get a ton of angry messages about anyways. Nothing I'm not used to. But yes, please. Professional wrestlers can look any way they want. In fact, what you think is a professional wrestler should no longer be a professional wrestler. I think the future of professional wrestling is blurring those lines on what is the model, what is the frame for a professional wrestler. I think breaking that barrier down is what's going to make professional wrestling popular again. I think it is. I think nowadays, you see a slew of different characters, you see a slew of different bodies, you see a slew of different personalities, different ways of life, and I think it makes professional wrestling more relatable to real life. And so I think that's the advancements in wrestling. I mean, back in the day, like, Yokozuna was a professional wrestler. If Yokozuna was a wrestler today, he would be shamed for his size. I'm sure he was back then too, but he wouldn't have never even had the opportunities he's had nowadays, probably, just because of how he looked. And so I think that's just part of life, and that's part of social media, but it's a part of professional wrestling that I absolutely despise.
You speak about breaking down the boundaries. I think a statue should be erected of Kevin Owens somewhere, because obviously the mainstream of wrestling for the longest time was just WWE, because there was no one else around, was there, on that level? And every single time a big fella would come along, they'd be treated as a joke, shamed for what they looked like, all that stuff, not treated seriously whatsoever. Kevin Owens came along and he changed all that completely, and I think it's just been getting better and better and better as the years have gone on. So get a statue up of Kevin Owens somewhere.
I completely agree. In fact, I've said this in the interviews before. I never envisioned myself getting anywhere in professional wrestling, because when I started professional wrestling, instantly the thought was, well, at the time I was 14 years old, so please take this as it was. You're too small. You're not over 6 feet. You'll never make it. Okay, fine. Then I became 6 feet. You're too big. You're not tall enough. Not muscular enough. Okay, I got into shape. Well, you're now over 24. It is too late. You can't be a professional wrestler. You look like the normal guy, and you can't be a normal guy in wrestling. And so I've always envisioned wrestling as never my end goal. To me, it was my passion, but one day, if I made money out of it, enough money to make my living, then I would be extremely lucky, and I am. But one day, and I'm good friends with Kevin, but when Kevin got signed to WWE, and when he became NXT champion, months into being there, really, really quickly, instantly it was like, oh, I can do this. Like, me and Kevin are not we're not different at all. In fact, like, we're very, very similar. If he can make it, and a fellow Canadian and someone of similar stature can make it, then I think I can make it. And I think if it inspired me, who was already a professional wrestler, who knew him, I think it's going to inspire a whole generation of people to pursue something, and not just be feel like they can't do it and feel slighted because they didn't have the genes that made them 6'4", and they didn't have the genes that would make them have easy abdomen muscles,
Yeah.
So I'm very happy. I think Kevin will go down in the Hall of Fame someday, and it'll be a pivotal point of pro wrestling when we establish that, like, oh wow, this is the year where people realize that, like, wrestling is more than just the 6'6" jacked up guy or the lady in a bikini, And I feel like we're finally seeing the ramifications of Kevin coming into WWE.
Just makes you wonder how many sort of great professional wrestlers didn't make it to that level that Kevin got to just in the years before him. Because obviously Kevin Owens has got a different kind of charisma than someone who was just, an athlete who just got brought in and then put in the performance center and whatnot. He gets professional wrestling. Just makes you wonder how many sort of characters of Kevin's ilk we missed out on the years before he came along. It boggles your mind as to why they do it. But then again,
I think the only one I can think of is Mick Foley, really. And that's the only one in the years and years that I could think that kind of pierced through. And the wild thing is, like, as a child, I never thought of Mick Foley as a ginormous man, but he's he's built like a fridge. He's pretty big, but he was still not what was the typical pro wrestler at the time. There is probably so many sad stories of professional wrestlers who were probably very, very gifted, who never got the chance based solely on the fact they didn't fit what was established as the mold.
Yeah, it is a massive shame, and I'm glad to see it's changing, because it's the right thing as well. Because you should be putting everything else first, surely, before the body, if that makes any sense.
Agreed.
So there we go. Body shaming, straight down the hell, exactly where it deserves. So Evil Uno, thank you very much for your time this evening. Very much appreciated. Anything to plug before I let you crack on with your day?
Oh yes, you can find me on all social medias at Evil Uno. I also Twitch stream fairly regularly. I'm a user of video game consoles, if you will. You can find me on twitch.tv/eviluno. Be on the lookout at AEW Games. There may be some stuff coming out that I have my hands in. And be sure to watch me on AEW television, be it Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Elevation, or maybe it's Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for AEW Dark, or maybe even Wednesday on the rare chance that I may be wrestling on Dynamite. You can see me 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on TNT. Please watch me. Thank you.
I need to pass on a message from Sam, who works here at Cultaholic, because you rated him once upon a time. So I need to send you thanks for that. Yeah. So there you go. Sam is still giddy about the fact you rated him, and I am as well, to be honest with you. So thank you, Evil Uno, for your time. I've been Ross Tweddell from Cultaholic Wrestling. That's been Straight to Hell. He's been Evil Uno. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.